Well, James, talk to me about your early life. I know you come from a big family, and really from the hills.
Yes, I was born right hereabouts. I tell everybody. I was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, on a cold November day, which my birthday just.
Happy birthday! You and I both are Scorpios. We've got both had birthdays in November.
Sagittarius.
Oh, okay. Well, you're at the end of the month.
I'm 27. Right. My daughter's 25, and I'm 27. Anyway, born on a cold day, Mom said, and I guess that's why I like winter so well, rain and snow. What's funny about that, I'll tell you this. When Dad was out of work, and they had my brother, he's older than me, and I'm the second of 8 children. I've got 5 sisters and my 2 brothers. And my mom miscarried, said of twins, or there'd been 10 of us. She didn't know if it was male or female, didn't know. So anyway, when Dad came to get us to the hospital, he'd worked and done all he could do. It was winter time, and he just out of work and stuff. And he had $40, I believe it was. The bill was like $100. The best I can remember they told me about. So anyway, he came and he was going to pay the $40. They said, "Oh, you'll have to see the head nurse." So he goes in there and he said he'd never seen such a crabby, hateful woman in his life. "What's wrong with you? You've had 9 months to get this money together and all this stuff, letting him have it." He said, "I'll tell you what, you just keep her and the baby for the bill." He just turned around and started walking out. Walking down, you'd have to know my dad.
He's a shrewd negotiator.
Yeah, he was in the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force when he met Mom in the Air Force. So anyway, he walked down through there, and the nurse came up and said, "Mr. Gibson, she's gonna go ahead and take that $40. He said, "I'm just giving 20 now." So they took the 20, and he got to bring us home. Mom was mad at him, and I thought, well, maybe that's why we had trouble when I got older, because he didn't want me to start with, I was just joking when I said that, But yeah, there's 8 of my family. And we all live local around here, too. And my dad passed away.
And we're in Seymour, right? Seymour.
I'm in Seymour. I've got brother lives in Seymour right down here, and a sister lives on up here in Newport area. The rest of them just all around here local.
So, given 8 kids total, I'm guessing y'all spend a lot of time outside. Who were some of your early influences, and kind of where did you find your love of the outdoors?
Well, Dad had friends that I remember, Jim Burchell. He made a pocket knife, and that just impressed me so much. He had another friend that could just do about anything, mechanically or wood-wise and things like that. And then my uncle had a cabinet shop, and I worked in that as well. And that gave me my love for wood to start with, and become a general contractor later in building, But anyway, Jim Burchell could stock a gun. Dad got where he could stock a gun some too, and other Leroy Cogdell, they walked the fields, hunted arrowheads, and they'd go up on the river and stay all night, and I got to go a few times with them. Then my great uncle Rob Ellison would take me into the mountains with ginseng and different. He'd say, "This is Dittany, you can make Dittany tea out of this." He'd show me different things like that. And that's one of the coolest times in my life was when I met Uncle Rob and went up there with him, Billy Morgan, and Abe Morgan. And that first time I ever went seine, we call it seining,
Seine, yeah.
Yeah, and they'd already told me, cut me a stick about 4 foot and take you a metal pipe, put on the end of it, drill, put some in it, flatten that metal pipe, and you use it to dig with, and then you got a club if you come up on an animal or something like that, And we'd be hunting through areas, kind of like Jerry Clower told that one about he had a coon dog, he's so smart he wouldn't even bark on his own private property. They just keep chasing, you didn't start barking on the other side, Well, we'd get in places, we'd start out where we could go, then we'd get in places where we probably shouldn't have been, evidently, because I was the first time with them. And they said, "Now don't holler or talk much, just hit on a tree if you can't see anybody," because, they could disappear in just a matter of seconds in these mountains.
Get thick in so many places.
Yeah, and so you just rap on the tree and they'd rap back and you just go toward that sound. Well, we hunted half a day. Billy could find that stuff on the next hilltop. He could see it. He brought me a plant. He handed it to me. He said, "James, now look at anything that looks like this." He said, "This is what you're looking for." He said, "Get the big stuff. Get a 3-prong if it's big enough, but definitely the 4-prong is usually big enough. Don't bother the 1s or 2s. And I always plant the berries back." So that's how we did it. So anyway, we took off. And then I met up with them. I found one other plant, and they all had pocket full of roots where they found stuff, because I'm sure I missed a lot. And we went to a place called Poplar Springs down in a little hollow there. Beautiful area, big old poplar trees. And somebody produced a coffee can. I didn't even see them have it on them. They all carried pocket knives too. And he scooped up water out of the spring and dumped some coffee in it and got a fire going. And then one of them pulled out a slab of fatback. One of them had a half a pound of cornbread, a tomato, and an onion. So we all had our place on the coffee can to take your drink. You know, this is my spot. And they're cutting up, and they fried the fatback and had the cornbread with tomato on it with the onion. We sat there and feasted. I mean, you don't get over stuff like that. I'll never forget it.
You know, it's funny, those early influences. My big dad, my dad's dad, was I think he quit school when he was in like the 7th grade. Hot to train, you know, was just lived kind of a vagabond life, but he wound up being a machinist and lived on a farm. He was a full-time farmer, full-time machinist, and he died when I was 10. But I would spend you know, a good bit of time with him, and I used to love going to that farm. And in my memory, what I remember most are his hands, but his hands are always doing something.
Yeah.
You know. And he told me at a very early age, you know, Shane, you always carry a sharp knife in your pocket. He carried a case knife that he was real proud of. I think my daddy bought it for him when I was born, and one of my prized possessions now. But I remember watching him sharpen that knife and you know, rebuild a carburetor and just do certain things. He had what he called a pump house. He had a barn, but then his pump house was kind of where that was his machine shop and little stuff too, and his tinkering bay, I guess. And man, I just spent so much time watching him in that place, and those lessons that resonate with you, and then sometimes they go away from you, and then you get hit with a situation, and it comes flooding back to you. And several years ago, I think it was 2014, Carrie and I, my wife, are driving around this turn. And we come around a turn, and there's a car coming to rest. I mean, literally coming to rest on its roof, and in a kind of a bad section of road. So I tell her to call 911. The car's smoking, and there's two older folks in there hanging upside down. You can't undo the seatbelt. And I had a pocket knife, and I went in there. And I told him, you know, put your hands on the roof. When I cut you loose, you're just going to fall on your head, you know. So make sure you've got good weight on your hands and be ready to catch yourself. And so I cut him out, and we got him out and away from the vehicle. And I remember hearing my big dad's words, you know, Shane, you should always carry a sharp knife in your pocket. And you're like, man, it came flooding back to me in a way that's just those lessons and that you learn in childhood from people that are, you know, of influence to you, that they really do mean something, and it's good if we can pass that on.
You was talking about your granddad's pocket knife and all. This was the last knife that my dad carried. Dad died 3 years ago and he's 85. Dad dealt in guns, knives, jewelry, and all that kind of stuff, and it always got me interested. This is a German eye canoe.
Yeah.
And it's two-bladed. I just bought 6 different ones for my grandboys, my grandson, and then this knife here, Dad gave it to me. He called it a gentleman's knife. The back spring's broken down on the blade, but it has a
Solage in Germany.
It has that.
Yeah.
This was made by Rostra, the little magnifier.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it's got this here that is for the, that's got a neat file right there for filing fingernails, and you clean your nails out. It's got a little awl right there on it.
Yeah, that's almost like, it's almost like a marlin spike too.
Yeah, that little thing beside it there, I didn't open it up. But that's for doing your dressing your nails, and the other little thing's poking holes right over here beside it. This is the first pocket knife right here I ever made. I had an old Barlow with broke back springs and stuff in it that I at a flea market, and I picked it up and I bought it for like a couple of bucks. And so I took the pattern and I made that my first knife, and I carried that for a long time. I filed the back, done stuff on it. I didn't know much about making pocket knives, but I just went off that pattern. That's what I come up with.
And when did you make that?
I can't remember. In around 90, I guess, somewhere right in there. But I've carried this one right here for years. It's a German eye canoe. And I like it because of the bone handles. It had a lot of engraving on the blade, which I'm not big on that. It had elk scenery and stuff like that. But I've carried that knife for a lot of years. longer than I've been married to Brenda, 27 years. So I counted back, and I've had it probably about 40 years. I bought it when Smoky Mountain Knife Works was in that antique mall before they built the big building to move.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember. I remember going there early on.
I bought several knives. I sold a lot of knives back in the day to people, you know, but I've carried that for years.
So you got into primitive skills at a real early age, just based. It wasn't primitive skills; it was just a lifestyle.
Exactly.
And so, where did you really start to kind of hone in on wanting to gather more of those skills?
Well, I had. We didn't have a lot growing up, honestly, you know, and but I had part of a Boy Scout manual, and I would do things out of that, you know, like setting up all these fires, different fires and things like that. I built tons of fires, and making the pot hooks like hanging around here and things like that. But I like the idea of carrying, you know, the canteen. I've got one over there that I've just recently found in a mess kit in the canteen, found it at the thrift store, so I buy that stuff, you know, hanging in the wall. But being around my dad's friends like that too, watching them smoking, I got into smoking. Stupid, you know. I quit. When I started boxing Golden Gloves, you could run 5 miles or 10 miles if you smoked. So I quit smoking, just run 5 miles. You know, to give me good incentive, you know. But seeing things like Leroy Cogdell had a room, and he had guns around the wall and arrowheads everywhere. And I just kept looking at the arrowheads. It fascinated me. And I didn't know anybody knew how to make them. He didn't know how to make them, but he went out and hunted them all the time and stuff. And it piqued my curiosity about that. How did they survive by using stone tools, things like that? Now I know, because I've been involved in it for many, many years. And I can make a stone tool that'll cut better than a regular metal knife. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Just knock a flake off of something, you know. And it was like the last deer that I killed, I used this knife right here, and I knocked off a bunch of flakes. That's a corner tang notch.
Yeah, a little dogwood handle.
No, that's a piece of something else. It's not dogwood. Ash, piece of ash.
Okay.
And anyway, I took knocked off flakes and used flakes in that knife right there, and I gutted the deer. I dressed it out, cut all the meat up, and everything. It was just stone tools, because they work actually better than a stone knife. A stone knife will get. I mean, a metal knife will get the fat on it and stuff, and it don't want to work good. But a stone knife seems to just cut right through it. Unless you hit a bone or you drop it, you know, it's still good to go. But things like that, and I read about every book I could get. I mean, I even read about custard, and I drew a picture of custard because I majored in art when I was in high school. And that was one of my majors, because I had like 3 classes in art, you know, and things. But I... just slowly but surely, I want to know how they make the arrows, so I would seek out someone that knew. I want to know how they, you know, chip the arrowheads, which I met a guy and got started in that. In the year when I come back from my honeymoon with Brenda, which would be almost 27 years in April, and he showed me the ropes and things, and he'd just been going a little while, but then we started going to nap-ins and getting around people who really knew their stuff. And most of them would share with you. Occasionally you'd have one that wouldn't, you know, but most of them would really share with you and was tickled to help you. And so I'd get around different people like that and just kept going. And then I went to Tom Brown's survival school, and then later I was trained under Steve Watts, and I went down with, I forget his name sometimes. Anyway, he's somewhat of an archaeologist, Scott Jones. I'd go down to a few of his classes and we'd do stuff there. And it ain't just about flint knapping. I mean, I learned textiles. I learned how to weave slings, weave the bottle carriers and all that stuff. I taught myself. Once you learn some basics, you can teach yourself stuff. And doing the cordage, I learned that at Tom Brown's, and I really went way beyond that with my cordage, different techniques and stuff. And I seen a guy just recently who's a Maori person doing it. Man, he made cordage quicker than anybody I've seen in my life, because he's holding it up here and he had a weight down here, and as he twisted it was just coming together.
It was just turning it together.
Yeah, the weight was just turning it together, and he made, just in a matter of minutes, probably 20 feet of cordage. Wow. Man. And he has.
I use primitive techniques to teach people to carry modern stuff in the woods. You know?
Exactly. Yes. Well, I'm about modern too, but I've always been of a mindset that if you lose your gear, what are you going to do? Right. So this is a backup. It's not. I mean, if I had to be thrust in a situation, I feel like I could make it primitively. I really do, and it'd be a good way to test to find out, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's a backup. Like Tom Brown taught, he said, have your backpack sitting off here with everything you need, but try a night or two in the shelter. Try this, try that. And if you can't, you always got that to fall back on. That's a smart way to do things.
Well, I believe that people need to check their dipstick. And that's something as a society we don't do anymore, you know. And I'm as the father of 2 young men now. That's something that I've always pushed my boys to do, is to challenge themselves, and I've tried to model that behavior to a certain degree.
Know your limits.
Well, but you got to find your limits,
right?
You know, and you got
find them and know them.
You have to introduce yourself into an adverse situation. It's better to do it on your terms than on Mother Nature's terms.
Well, like we say, learn it at home before you go out in the woods and try to do it. Don't go out there. That's like that Chris McCandless.
Yes.
Yeah, died like he did.
Yeah.
He ate the wrong thing, of course. That caused it, and I hate it happened to him. But he wasn't that experienced, you know, at what he was trying to do.
Well, there's a false security in this idealism and there's this kind of romanticized notion of I'm going to go live off the land, and the fact is everything out there wants to eat you. And I mean, even the bugs at some point, like, you're just food to everything out there, and you have to be able to overcome those obstacles and elements. And
well, you learn to live with nature, not go against it.
Right.
And a lot of people have quoted that many times, you know, and there's a truth to all that.
Now, one thing, you know, I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with you and even Patrick Rollins. One thing I can tell you is I'm a jack of all trades. I've never been good at anything, but I do like to learn new stuff. But something I've noticed is that you and Patrick both are very much students first. I've seen you with your notepad, and you carry a notebook, and Patrick carries a notebook, and y'all are every time we have a bushcraft class at Randall's Adventure Training, you know, the class is always different, and the reason that is because you and Patrick, who are the primary instructors, are always learning new stuff.
Yes, we have to be. I'm not happy unless I'm learning something new. And I've got a book up there I lay beside the computer, and if I see somebody doing something, I try to write it down, and I try to give credit to who done it too, because I'm a firm believer in giving credit, because nobody single-handedly invented the wheel, I don't think. It took a process of time and different people's ideals. And just like I taught that new pot hanging system that hangs out over the fire. Yeah. And one of the students, I said, now if you figure out anything different, holler out. One of the students named Hunter, and he said, well, James, would it be better if you put the wire on the underside? And I said, yes, perfect. Then one of them hooked it to a tree.
Yeah.
I felt like on that was brilliant, and I felt like there, you know, your fire would be close to tree, so you just make you a longer arm.
And then the one girl used the fork.
I seen that, and I said, cut this off right here, and I said, because this is another way we can do this, and it pendulums better around as you swing it away from the fire and off. So she done that. She said she'd take the time to look for something like that if she's going to build that system.
Well, it's you know, the improvisation that happens and putting people in that mindset of not being afraid and let's go try something different is something that's really cool. Now, I know I was trying to think on the way up here, you know, from what I know about you, I know that you've been a jewelry maker, you're a musician, you are a what degree black belt in ninjutsu?
6th degree. That's a copy of. It's much larger than that, but that's a copy of my 6th degree.
So we do any flint napper,
spoon carver,
a carver, not just
I'm
a
spoon. General contractor by trade. I build houses. I built log houses. I did European timber
maker.
Knife maker.
I'm just thinking how many more things can you do to make me feel bad about myself?
I don't do it to make anybody feel bad. I do it because I know it's a desire I have in me to learn new stuff constantly. Well, I just got a new blowgun in my wife bought me, and I'm gonna get out here and start shooting that thing a lot more. So slingshots.
I know you've gotten into slingshots lately. So slingshots are kind of what's here now, and you just got a blowgun. What do you feel like? Oh, you're your bow maker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else do you feel like is on the horizon?
Well, I've used that ladle a lot in the past, and I'm kind of coming back circle again, and I'm working. I've just made a new ladle, and I've got to build the darts now. This is the basket maker style they found in the caves out in Arizona and Colorado and places like that. Piece of brain tan wrapped around here, and I got the finger grooves. And this one, what's cool about this one, you just put the lateral in here, and it just, the cane piece, and it just slides back and catches there. I feel a little ridge up there, so I'm going to probably take that hollow, that out a little bit more. That way when you lay it on there, it just slides back.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's a piece of cherry off of a limb that broke out of a, I guess you'd call that a bean cherry from out Oregon or someplace like that. It had that yellowish, orangish looking one. But yeah, I just made me a new one. I've made several of these things, but that lateral's a lot of fun. I made a Kylie, which is an Aboriginal throwing stick, but it's much larger than the boomerang. And they use it to kill kangaroos, and they use it for kind of a war club as well. But my grandson comes up, he'll start throwing that thing. He'll play for, run back for a solid hour. He has so much energy, you know.
All right, James, when we started, we were kind of talking even before the camera came on about kind of your process for a knife or a design. Can you walk me through kind of how that happens?
All mine starts on paper. And I remember I took a class with Joe Kiesler, Master Smith, and he's been the chairman of the ABS as well. And phenomenal knife maker, and I learned how to do the little bit of the engraving on the spine, that vine pattern, not just with files, but you got to chase in the middle of it some. I learned to do that by watching him do it, and he worked on a brass piece, and because I was interested, he done several things that brass piece and just gave it to me. And so I brought that home and I had to go by. So I just started working on it from there. But the process of a knife, the reason I mentioned Joe is he said all his started on paper, and I was sitting there thinking, well, mine do too. So I will start drawing. It's like the axe. I started drawing this axe up, and I drew on this thing for over a week. And I kept working on it. And I wanted to get, I laid it out where it had perfect rocker. So when its center's touching, when this is touching, that gives you one of the best feels of an axe you can get. And then I wanted something to handle. That's why I come up with the 4-finger grooves there. That your hand would, and it kind of goes inward, and then you got the knob on the end, or some of them call it coat's foot or deer foot, and or just a knob, and that would keep your hand from coming off too. And then the Viking bearded part, where you get your hand up there and use it kind of like a knife. But I drew and drew on this thing, and I'd walk by, and I'd leave it laying on the table or my desk. And I'd walk by, and when you're up looking at it, it's like rising above it, getting a different perspective. And I'll look at it like that, and I'll reach over and I'll erase and change something. I'll walk around the table or something, look at different angles. I've done that for, I know, a week, if not more. And finally I came up with something that I like. And then I will try to make it. Same way with my knives. Every knife that I've, probably just about every knife I've made, except for a few that when I'm forging, I will forge out 3 or 4 knives sometimes. And they've not been drawn up, so I will have them. And then later I might change a little bit on it or something, because looking at it, but I'll usually take that blade and I'll draw it on paper, then I'll try to match the handles to that, because it's a whole lot easier to look at it after you've drawn it out than it is to make something, put it on there, then have to tear it off, fix it, something else. So everything starts on paper for me.
Now you came up, your forge is called Knob Creek Forge, and how long have you been making blades? I guess as Knob Creek Forge.
As Knob Creek Forge, well, that's when I moved up here. This is Knob Creek Community. And I've been here 19 years, but I made my first knife in 1980, and I've been making knives ever since. And this knife here is one of my earlier knives, and it's a big knife. And after going to Tom Brown's and seeing that, I thought, well, this is kind of like that, but not really like that. Yeah. But it has this will pull a cut in, right. The way it's designed, and I can use this for a draw knife. And I had another knife with it that somebody kept on it, so I sold it, and I never did replace it. You know, to build another and replace it. But this knife here, and it's a cross draw sheath, and put it on your side or put it on your back or whatever. And anyway, I made my first knife in 1980 out of a piece of cross-cut saw. And I started dating this girl, and I went up one Sunday after church with her, met her parents and all, and was sitting there talking, and her dad and I was, and he's interested in knives too, so we got to talking about knives. He said he had a piece of old cross-cut saw. He went and got it. Come in, he said, I'm not going to do anything with it. Why don't you take it? And he gave it to me. And I made a little knife out of that thing. It was hardened steel. I didn't know that in 1980. You couldn't hardly find any books. There wasn't no internet at all. And I found a little bit of information on a couple of books, and I bought them immediately. And if I found anything on bow building, I'd buy it immediately, knowing in my mind that I'm going to do that. It's just like I've got some stuff right now, but I'm going to get back into more pottery. and I got all this stuff hanging drying. It's to make more baskets. And I've got baskets in that cabinet, and that's what all this stuff's for. If I see it, I go ahead and gather it now, even though I plan on doing it later.
Yeah.
Or I might do something, you know. I was tempted to do a basket this morning, but I was trying to clean this place up a little bit. But
so what is your most popular knife with Knob Creek 4s?
my neck knives sell more than anything, and then the belt knife would be did I bring it over here? Oh yeah, right here. Would be my what we call modified Kepler.
Mm-hmm.
And that knife right there.
That's I love that blade. That's so this is, you know, I got the second PR4 prototype because I saw Patrick using his, and I just love that, and I love the texture on them. I like that your knives are made to be used. They're custom knives, but they even come to you with a little bit of character because of your etching and what you do, and I love using them. I tell you what I've noticed in using your neck knife, and like a lot of people, it seems like early on, I can speak for me, is a lot of people kind of focus on gear acquisition. And that is something I collected gear, you know. I wanted to get the gear, and I came to ESEE through our big knives. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've noticed is that even in like our bushcraft classes and our survival classes is a lot of people come to us through our big knives, but then as their skill level goes up, the knives get smaller and smaller, you know, to where, you know, I'm so fortunate that I get to hang out with you and Patrick and then Ruben. Yeah. Ruben can travel the world with a Swiss Army knife.
Exactly.
You know, and
it's pretty much legal. You know, carrying a lot of stuff may not be, so that's wise on his part to be able to learn how that knife functions. Like he does everything with that thing.
And so to see, it's really a cool process to see our students that come to these classes, and you start seeing these big knives come out of the sheaths, and they're trying to do stuff, and then you hand them one of your personal knives, or Patrick or I said, here, try this, and so many people,
they're surprised,
discount a small knife because they think they have to have that big knife, and then you know, I look over at somebody like Jacob Mason or somebody that's been to 2 or 3 of our bushcraft classes, and he is doing everything with a small knife, bushcraft Kelso, or you know, or any of those guys who have real skill and have really, they've shifted their focus from skill or gear acquisition to skill acquisition.
Yes,
and that's cool to see. As
you
an
know,
instructor,
we don't live in the jungle. Them guys take a machete and do everything with it. That's what they're used to. That's what they grow up with. Here, you know, just a pocket knife's what everybody carried for years. And you know, and like I said, those 3 older gentlemen I went with like that in the mountains, they all carried pocket knives. I've never seen a belt knife on any of them. Maybe a pistol in a pocket. Usually it's 38 or a 22.
Yeah.
And shoot barrel with it, whatever they need to do, you know. But nowadays, everybody thinks the bigger the knife, the more macho you are. And everybody stand there, they'll do a picture, and they just try to look as mean as they can. Studying ninjutsu, I don't want them to think that I'm that way. I want them to be at ease with me, and you got the ultimate surprise then, you know, if you need it. You know, and I'd rather make friends as enemies anyway. Yeah. But I think that the more you try to look macho and mean, the more this younger generation eat it up. But when they get down in real life and see how things really function and go down, then they might have a different attitude about things too.
Well, there's certainly something to be said for that. That goes back to checking your dipstick. A lot of people purposefully avoid uncomfortable situations, and I am of the notion that it's good for us to learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
It is, yes. I know that you're going to get thrust into things in real life. That's why when I trained in ninjutsu, probably 95% of the time we was outside. We was not in a dojo. He never did build a dojo. We'd go inside of a little place in the wintertime. It got real cold. Pouring down rain, we trained in it.
Well, you know, one of the things that we see is in our field survival classes, most people quit at 40%. Like they quit at discomfort, not at pain.
Exactly.
You know, and so if you can raise your level of tolerance and do the mental work, then you're going to be able to outlast a lot of people.
Exactly. It's like the old thing, when you get in a fight and a lot of people get down in fetal position, that's when people really hurt you. They know they've got you, they'll take advantage of that. There's some cruel people in this whole world. They will hurt you.
It is. That's why I like to keep my circle small.
Exactly. I have a lot of friends, but close friends, it's not as many, that really know me. And I can be friends with anybody, and I try to be. And I want to be myself sociable to everybody, because the Bible talks about, winning friends and having friends. I want friends. We all do, because we help each other along this way, this journey of life, this path we're
That's the
traveling.
way it should be.
Yeah.
Well, James, I have enjoyed this, and I look forward to this article, and I'm tickled to write about it. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, and I'm glad you come. I always enjoy when we get together, man.
Always.